Blog Talk Radio.
Paranormal Review Radio.
Hello, and welcome to Paranormal Review Radio, the only paranormal show on Blog Talk Radio that discusses a variety of topics with facts, opinions, and fun without any commercial interruptions. We don't claim to be experts in the field, but rather everyday people who want to learn and express everything paranormal. We bring you theories on both sides of the topic and let you, yes, you, the listener, make up your own minds. I'm Anthony Agati, broadcasting from New York City. And who else is with me?
It's me, Lucy Liebfried from Chicago. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Paranormal Friday night. As always, our phone lines are open, so give us a call. The number to call is 661-244-9831. We have our chat room up and running, so feel free to ask us a question or stir up a debate in the room. Okay, enough about that. Let's start the show already.
You know, I don't know about you guys, but for a long time now, I've always heard about the 1111 timestamp phenomenon. For some weird reason, it's always been this thing, and it's not just the clock chiming 1111. It's also the significance of the number, how many historical and tragic events in history have all added up to the number 11. This phenomenon is even connected to the December 21st, 2012 end of the world phenomenon. There are health groups, radio stations, magazines, and books dedicated to the 1111 phenomenon. But it seems like so many of them have different views, and there doesn't seem to be one true answer. So tonight, Lucy and I will explore this strange and complex mysticism and ask you all out there listening to call in with your stories or theories. I'm not sure I believe there is a sort of synchronicity to this whole 1111 phenomenon. It very well just may be coincidence, but to each and every one out there, we have found that this phenomenon means something different to all of you.
You know, Anthony, to understand what the 1111 phenomena is all about, I think maybe we should start to discuss how numbers in general have significant symbolic meanings.
Okay.
Numbers have long been seen as expressions of cosmic order, possibly deriving from ancient Babylonian observation of regular cosmic events, such as night and day, the phases of the moon, and cycles of the year. In many cultures, numbers are full of symbolic meaning, and in some cultures, numerology has an influence on the future. Now, viewed symbolically, numbers represent more than quantities. They also have qualities. To the Greek mathematician Pythagoras, even numbers were feminine, divisible into two equal parts and passive. Odd numbers were masculine and active. So let's look at the symbolic roles that numbers have played in different cultures, religions, beliefs, and human thoughts. Let's start with the number 0. 0 was invented in ancient India, represented by the continuous circle. It signifies non-being and eternity. To Pythagoras, it was the perfect form which contains all and from which all is created. In Islam, it is limitless light and divine essence. The number 1. Now, it represents beginnings and the primal cause. It is a symbol of creation and the human species and is depicted in the standing stone, the upright staff, and the erect phallus. It also symbolizes the oneness to which all living things must return. Now, in the monotheistic religions, 1 is the number of God, while in Jungian psychology, it is a unifying symbol. The number 2, Many cultures view the world as made up of opposing dualities, life and death, light and dark, male and female, heaven and hell. Others see these pairs as complementary, such as the Chinese yin and yang. 2 is the number of discord and conflict, but also of balance and marriage. The number 3, the most positive number in symbolism in Christian thought, it has a central importance as the doctrine of the Trinity, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. Number 3 expresses all aspects of creation, including birth, life, and death, past, present, and future, mind, body, and soul, man, woman, and child. The symbolism of 3 is also linked with the triangle. The number 3 is also a very mystical and spiritual number, and it's featured in many folk tales. The 3 wishes, 3 guesses, 3 little pigs, the 3 bears. Number 4. 4 is the number of square. The 4 elements, earth, fire, water, and air. The 4 points of the compass, north, south, east, and west. The 4 seasons. The 4 phases of the moon, new, half moon waxing, full moon, moon waning. Number 4 is associated with the earth and with completeness. In medieval Europe, human nature was characterized by the 4 humors: phlegmatic, sanguine, choleric, and melancholic. In China, 4 is unlucky because she, the word for 4, and she, which is the word for death, sound similar. Number 5, as the sum of 2, a feminine number, and a 3, masculine number, the sum of the first even and odd numbers is 5. It is the symbol for man. On the figure of a man, a line joining the head to the outstretched arms and legs forms a pentagram, and there are also 5 senses: hearing, smell, taste, sight, and touch. In Islam, 5 is a sacred number. Muslims pray 5 times a day, and there are 5 pillars of piety: declaration of faith, prayer, fasting during Ramadan, and giving alms, and making the pilgrimage to Mecca. The number 6, according to the Bible, God created the world in 6 days and rested on the 7th. 6 represents balance, love, health, and also luck, as is the winning throw at dice. Number 7. 7 is a sacred number representing the union of divinity, number 3, and earth, number 4. Each of the 4 phases of the moon lasts 7 days, and there are 7 days in the week. In Hindu philosophy, there are 7 chakras, or wheels, in the body. These stand for levels of consciousness, ranging from the lowest for physical survival to the highest for spiritual enlightenment. Menorah. The branches of the Jewish candlestick indicate the 7 days of the week, as well as the sun, the moon, and 5 principal planets. 3 U-shaped arms represent wisdom, strength, and beauty. The number 7 is also featured in folk saying, breaking a mirror leads to 7 years of bad luck. The 7 deadly sins, gluttony, sloth, lust, vanity, anger, envy, avarice, are the counterparts of the 3 theological and 4 cardinal virtues. Number 8. As the first cubic number, 2 times 2 times 2, 8 is considered the perfect number. Chinese life is ruled by 8. At 8 months, a child has milk teeth. At 8 years, he loses them. At twice 8, he reaches maturity. And at 64, which is 8 times 8, he loses the power of procreation. In Buddhism, 8 is a lucky number, possibly associated with the 8 petals of the lotus, a plant associated with luck in India and a favorite Buddhist symbol. The Buddhist wheel of life has 8 spokes for the 8th fold path to enlightenment. Number 9. 9 is a sacred number, 3 multiplied by itself to give eternity, completion, and fulfillment. In China, number 9 is the number of celestial power. The 9-storied pagoda is a symbol of heaven. Many folk sayings are around the number 9, like a stitch in time says 9, Cloud 9 is the ultimate happiness. A cat has 9 lives. A 9-pointed star is used by the Baha'i as a faith symbol. The number 9 has significance in the Baha'i revelation. 9 years after the announcement of Bab-i-Shiraz, Baha'u'llah received the imitation of his mission in the dungeon in Tehran. 9, as the highest single-digit number, symbolized completeness. Now, since the Baha'i faith claims to be the fulfillment of the expectation of all prior religions, this symbol, as used, for example, in the 9-sided Baha'i temples, reflects the sense of fulfillment and completeness. The number 10. As the numbers of the fingers, 10 is the foundation of most counting systems, including the decimal system. Excuse me. 10 also figures strongly in the Bible. There are 10 commandments, 10 Egyptian plagues. Buddhism also has 10 commandments, 5 for monks and 5 for laity. Now, according to some theories, the decimal symbol 10 is symbolic of the return to unity. The number 12. In Christian symbolism, 12 is a number of universal fulfillment, being the number of Christ's disciples, as well as the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 nights of the Round Table, and the 12 days of Christmas. In many traditions, it relates to the time-space continuum with the zodiac and the 12 months of the year, and represents a completed cycle. Number 13. In the West, the number 13 is generally considered unlucky. Now, this superstition may derive from the 13 people Christ and his 12 disciples who were present at the fateful Last Supper. The Kabbalah lists 13 spirits of evil. In ancient South America, there were 13 Mayan heavens, and the Aztec calendar was divided into 13-day periods. In other cultures, the number 13 is considered sacred. In ancient Greece, it represented Zeus, the 13th deity, and is important. Excuse me. 21. In many cultures, 21 is considered a major landmark in life. 40. Representing wholeness, the number 40 is especially important in the Bible. Moses' sojourn on Sinai lasted 40 days, as that of Jesus Christ in the wilderness. Noah's Ark floated in the flood for 40 days and 40 nights. 40 was also significant in terms of years. The Jews spent 40 years in the wilderness, and the reigns of David and Solomon were both 40 years. 50. 50 is the number of joy and celebration. It marks the completion of 7 by 7-year cycles, and it signifies new beginnings. 60. 60 marks the division of the minute and the hour, and it's associated with life and time.
Okay, so when we first discussed doing a show on the 11/11 phenomenon, we had invited someone on who is considered to be a bit controversial in the field of paranormal and mysticism. So, Lucy and I reached out to Uri Geller, and I'm sure you all know who he is. The guy that bends the spoons? Well, we sent him some emails, and we didn't hear back from him. But I wanted to share an article he has written about the 11/11 phenomenon. It's a bit out there and may be also a bit controversial. I'll read the article now, and after, Lucy and I are going to sort of discuss its meaning and identity. And I think Lucy and I can sort of say this now, Lucy, both you and I sort of have opposing opinions on this topic tonight. So this is the article that Uri Geller had posted. I don't know the year it was posted. I don't have that information. But here's what he says. And I'm going to go through it. I may skip at some points, Lucy, so try and follow along with me. I believe that people who have a constant contact with the 11/11 phenomenon have some type of positive mission to accomplish. It is still a mystery to me what it is that we all have to do or why we are all being gathered and connected together. But it is a very real and tangible. I feel that it is immensely positive, almost like there is a thinking entity sending us these physical and visual signs from the universe. In me, and this is Uri Geller, in me it activates the power of prayer, love, determination to somehow help the world. Someday I suspect we will find out the true meaning behind this puzzling phenomenon. It could start happening to you too after reading this website or this article. String theory is said to be the theory of everything. It is a way of describing every force and matter regardless of how large or small or weak or strong it is. There are a few 11s that have been found in the string theory. I find this to be interesting since this theory is supposed to explain the universe. The first 11 that was noticed is that the string theory has to have 11 parallel universes. And without including these universes, the theory does not work. The second is that Brian Greene has 11 letters in his name. I don't know why he gets onto this. For those of you who do not know, he is a physicist as well as the author of The Elegant Universe, which is a book explaining string theory. And his book was later made into a miniseries that he hosted. Another interesting find is that Isaac Newton, whose ideas kicked off string theory many years later, has 11 letters in his name, as well as John Schwartz. John Schwartz was one of the two men who worked out the anomalies in the theory. Plus one person equals 2 equals equality. Also, the two ones next to each other is 11. The two men had to find the same number on both sides of the equation in order for the anomalies to be worked out. So the equation had to have equality. There were two matching sides to the equation as well because they ultimately got 496 on both sides. So the 1 plus 1 equals 2 equals equality applies for the equation as well. Here is something more than the paranormal or numerology, something very fundamental about the scientific and mathematical nature of the universe involving unary arithmetic. 11 equals 3 in binary arithmetic. 3 is the cornerstone of the Trinity and also Hinduism, like Lucy was talking before. 1 male plus 1 female are needed to reproduce 1 child. Ergo, 1 plus 1 equals 3 in reproduction. The building block of all existence since the Big Bang is hydrogen, which through nuclear fusion has produced all other atoms known to mankind. Hydrogen is another 11 in binary, another 3, 1 electron, 1 proton, and 1 neutron. The yin and yang are also 11, two ones of opposite kind, reflecting the duality of the universe in the Eastern religions and modern computer technology. Following year 1 BC is the year 1 AD, another 11, since our modern calendar has no year 0, which is why the 21st century officially began on January 1st, 2001. And finally, there's an oddity of the number 10, which historically grew out of the counting on our fingers. The oddity is that 10 equals 1010 in binary arithmetic, 1010. The most startling discovery was a book written in 1981, 20 years prior to the 2001 attacks in New York, called The Birth of the Christ Recalculated. The author, Dr. Ernest L. Martin, claims to have calculated the exact date of Jesus Christ's birth based on the celestial charts for that era. The date of Christ's birth, based on the famous Star of Bethlehem, is calculated to be September 11th, 3 BC. Dr. Martin's findings have been accepted by many scholars, theologians, historians, and astronomers. We also note that Jesus Christ has 11 letters. The cross is found standing in the ruins of the WTC, World Trade Center, and the dominance of the number 11 in the 9/11 events make this combination even more mysterious. There is another significant religious event occurring about 2,000 years later on September 11, 1999. According to the Hebrew Scriptures, September 11, 1999 was the 6,000th anniversary of Adam's creation and year 1 of the Hebrew calendar. The majority of computers today use binary code, but what is it? Think of an on-off switch where 0 equals off and 1 equals on. These codes are linked together just as letters and then words are put together to make a sentence. In turn, this is speeded up within your computer. It has become an electronic language, a form of communication that can cross many barriers, such as language itself. Not only that, but it can be applied to so many things, some of which have yet to be discovered or thought of. It's not a new concept. I think it began with a piece of string and a knot, and then a piece of string and several knots, thousands of years ago. Throughout man's history, it has evolved and developed. For example, the abacus, a more sophisticated and effective simple computer. Everyone and everything in the world today is based on and affected by this electronic language. In the realms of 1111, perhaps, it can be seen as the communication between two people and or the computer. For what is the human brain but a computer in the on position? Through communication, we learn to appreciate and respect one another's values, customs, and beliefs. That has to be a good thing, and all this from a knot and a piece of string thousands of years ago. The 1111 enigma has been here for a while now and has affected the lives of countless thousands of people. It is really a phenomena. Is it really a phenomenon, or is it our internal body clocks playing tricks on us? For many people, seeing the 11s in such abundance makes them certain that this goes far beyond the realms of coincidence. If this is a message, then 4 ones would be the most noticeable of all numbers to have appeared on a digital clock. The major question is what can be gleaned from this message. In Colin Wilson's book, The Occult, his discussion of the Pythagoreans, the first numerologists, we get the first glimmer of a starting point. Creation starts with the divine pure unity, number 1, then develops to the holy 4, and the first 4 digits beget 10, the sacred number from which everything else springs. 1 and 1 is also the beginning of the Fibonacci curve, a universal pattern of the nature found in everything from conch shells to galaxy spirals. In my own reflexive understanding of this phenomenon, and this is Uri Geller talking, I have taken it to mean the need to find balance in life and avoid becoming too sort of ensconced in the superficiality of our corporate consumer society. September 11th has created a miasma of evil and has connected the number 11 with much negativity. This, to me, is misplaced, as the choice of date by bin Laden is probably a cruel joke to reflect the American emergency number. 1111 seems to be the choice before man. Either realize that one Muslim is essentially the same as one Jew, one Christian, or one Buddhist, so we can either live side by side in harmony, or we can concentrate on the small differences between us and use it as an excuse for conflict. Optimism or pessimism is the choice before us. Solara's, which is an amazing intuitive, and Uri's opinions, and these are both of their opinions. The endless reoccurrence of these hours, 1111, 1101, 1110, 1001, 1011, 1010, 101, 111, represents a positive connection and a gateway to the mysteries of the universe and beyond, a trigger of remembrance. For many years, the numbers 1111 have been mysteriously appearing to people all over the world. Often appearing on digital clocks, the sightings of 1111 tend to occur during times of heightened awareness, having a most powerful effect on the people involved. This causes a reactivation of our cellular memory banks. There's a stirring deep inside, a hint of remembrance of something long forgotten. The appearance of 1111 is also a powerful confirmation that we are on the right track, aligned with our highest truth. Throughout the years, I have personally encountered thousands of people all over the world who have experienced repeated sightings of 1111. They all want to know what is happening to them and why. What does the 1111 signify? 1111 is a pre-encoded trigger placed into our cellular memory banks prior to our descent into matter, which, when activated, signifies that our time of completion is near. This refers to the completion of duality. When the 1111 appears to you, it is your wake-up call. A direct channel opens up between you and the invisible. When this happens, it is a time to reflect on whatever you were doing for a moment and look larger. A transfer is in position. You can enter the great reality if you wish, pray or meditate, and seed your future, and also you can be seeded by the invisible. You can ask for help in some specific area of your life, or simply listen quietly and receive a revelation. The appearance of 1111 is an always beneficial act of divine intervention, telling you that it's time to take a good look around you and see what is really happening. It's time to pierce the veils of illusion that keep us bound to an unreal world. You have been chosen because you are ready to step into the greater reality, to lead the way for others into a new way of living, into a greater love, to ascend from duality into oneness. He also goes into the 1111, which is a bridge, it's a doorway. I'm going to skip over that. But he does end with this, and he says 1111 is the pre-encoded trigger and the key to the mysteries of the universe and beyond. Some of you have recognized the symbol as something of significance, yet have been unaware of its true meaning. With the advent of digital clocks many years ago, the significance of 1111 began to make itself felt, often appearing on clocks at times of accelerated awareness. For those of you who have have known that 1111 was something special, we now need you to come forth into positions of leadership for your important parts of the key. Okay. I read this online, and that this is what sort of triggered me and Lucy to try and get Uri Geller online with us tonight to be on the radio. He does make some points to the phenomenon. He does bring upon the spirituality, the sort of awakening that this 1111 phenomenon is supposed to inspire upon us. I thought he eloquently had written this article, and if you sort of go back and listen to what I just read, or if you go online and actually read his article, to me it really does not give me a direct answer. I don't know, maybe I'm not hearing it, maybe I'm not listening. I just don't see him truly explaining what 1111 means. I've heard and I've seen all over the internet and in books. Lucy and I have been buried in books in the last week and a half to try and research this phenomenon. And I can tell you, and Lucy, you can chime in whenever you want, but I can tell you that I have seen and heard so many different scenarios and reasons as to what this 1111 means. I've heard, and some folks in the chat room have already been talking about this, about an awakening, a spiritual awakening, a self-awareness that must come out. You are to become a leader. You are one of the elite in this group of 1111s. But then I've also seen that 1111 is also negative and is also the mark of a demonic beast, and that it is actually the 1111 hints that are being given to us are sort of these sort of sly little markings that the demons are sort of setting for us as a trap. I've heard those responses, and I've also heard that 1111 is just pure coincidence, that there's nothing to it. You know, the number 1 and the number 2, the number 3, and the number 4 and number 5 are most common in timestamps. The coincidence of seeing a 1010 or a 1234 or a 101 is much more common to see on a digital clock than it is to see an 6, 7, 8, and 9, because it's not readily seen as much. If you count the numbers between 1 and 10, or actually 1 and 12 for the time clock, you've got 11, 11, which are 1 and 1, which are low numbers, 12, which is 1 and 2, which are low numbers, 10, 1 and 0, which are low numbers, and then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these low numbers are a majority within a clock. I don't know. Do you want to chime in, Lucy?
Okay, so he goes into all of this, and the points that you're making are, I guess they're valid points. But the first thing that really hit me about this whole 1111 thing is it is something that when you look at a clock, what are the chances of you looking up at the clock and it's 11:11 or it's 2:11? Why is it that we're not looking at the clock and, like right now, my clock says 9:28? It's just something that the coincidences are just too much for me to discount it. And I know that, you touched on a little bit about the spirituality. And honestly, I personally feel it. I mean, I know in the last, I want to say maybe couple months in particular, but maybe this whole past year, I've been feeling like, personally, for me, I've been feeling like a more awareness, a more pull towards spirituality and things like that. And within that pull, I'm noticing all these coincidences. Every time I look at the clock, it is either 1:11 or it's an 11:11. It's always on 11. 11 has always been like my favorite number in the whole world. Okay, I was born on the 11th. Anthony, the very fact that me and you have connected, you're born on the 11th. It's just that this number, the 1.
But could it be coincidence? Could it just be coincidence? I mean, I understand.
It could be.
But you know what? I've heard all of the stories about the spirituality and the awakening. How do we know it is a spiritual awakening? It's a sign from the universe. How do we know that?
How do we know it's not?
Exactly.
It boils down. It boils down to kind of like a spiritual awakening isn't going to come with a map and here's what's going to happen. You know, on day 1, this is going to happen. It's going to be different for everybody. But the experiences that people are having, they seem to kind of have this kind of sense of the same. Even though no two experiences are going to be the same, there is some kind of the sameness with all of them. They're different, but yet they're all the same. So how do I know it's a coincidence? I can't say for sure that it's just a coincidence, whereas on the other side, I can't say that it's truly a sign.
But here's my question, though. I completely believe in and have faith in spiritual awakening. I believe it exists. I believe, I have felt it. I've known people who have gone through it. I believe that there are signs and that there are instances within a person's life when there comes a spiritual awakening. But my question is, why is it being tied to 11:11 phenomenon? Why is it being tied to simply looking at a clock and seeing 11:11, or a business address with 11:11, or a lotto ticket with 11:11, or 10:10, or something like that? Why is it tied to the numbers? I haven't been convinced that there's a tie to that and spiritual awakening. Throughout history and throughout mankind, and this started way back, when man was first created, and the idea that man's survival on the earth sort of hinged on the fact that our brain adapted to the environment, and in order for us to survive, our brain has to depict patterns in everything. Whether you like it or not, your brain does that. Your eyes will see it, or your ears will hear it, or your nose will smell it, but your brain then will detect patterns in that and automatically create a succession of these repeated patterns. So if you're constantly smelling something all the time, your nose is more adept to finding that sort of specific scent in, for lack of a better word, a pile of shit. If it's something really sweet and flowery, your nose is going to pick up on that if your brain has already created that pattern. All right, for instance, let me give you an example, okay? Many, many years ago, I bought a 79 Mustang car, okay? I loved Mustangs. And after I purchased, this is actually my first car that I ever bought, and for $200, by the way. And after I bought the car, I had noticed a lot of other people driving in the neighborhood with a 79 or an 80 Mustang in the area. And most of the time when I would notice it, it was the same color. It was white. And so my brain picked that out. And I kept saying to myself, this is so odd. Why am I noticing this 79 Mustang, white Mustang, driving around now? I've never really seen it before, and all of a sudden now that I have the car, I see it more. Well, your brain is more adept to picking that out on your everyday life because it's on the forefront of your mind. You own this car. I have this car. I see it every single day, and now my brain is adapting and pointing that out to me everywhere I go on a daily basis. So I'm correlating that to this whole 11:11 phenomenon, that when folks constantly see the 11:11 on the digital clock, or maybe it is constantly a 444, either on time or within work or in addresses, I think automatically your brain may be detecting that because for a certain period of time you may have seen that 2 or 3 or 4 repeated times, and your brain is now adapting to it and now picking that out at everywhere you go, and now you're correlating it to sort of say to yourself, well, maybe it means something to me. And I get that. I get that people will do that for themselves because that's sort of a way of coping as well. You know, for a human being to then comprehend, why am I seeing this constantly all the time, there's no real answer, no real reason, and so you question it. And a lot of people then go into their faith, their belief, and then they believe, okay, maybe this is a sign, maybe this is my God telling me something, maybe this is the universe telling me what to do or what I should not do. And so it sort of takes on completely different meanings for completely different people. And I mean, that's where I'm at as a paranormal investigator. I always like to try and figure out what is the reality of whatever is happening. And if I can't figure it out, I can't label it paranormal. I can't, if I know for sure, it is something where, if we're out at a location and I know all of the other variables are controlled, whereas there's no outside noise, there's no wind, there's no this, there's no that, and no that, but then I see something, then I can say, okay, you know what, I've already knocked out all of the different other variables out there, so it could be something paranormal. But with this 1111 phenomenon, just what I just explained now is science to me, and it is what your brain actually does, and so I can't negate that data, that information, to then say, okay, you know what, maybe it's not that science. It's actually something spiritual. My mind can't concept that, and that's just me. That's just my opinion. But I know, Lucy, you disagree with it.
Right. And what you're saying is a valid point. I totally understand. Like I bought a PT Cruiser. Now all of a sudden I notice all these PT Cruisers. But the 1111 thing, for some reason, and I'm going to go back to Intuit Solara, and she had said it's a positive connection and a gateway to the mysteries of the universe and beyond. In the research, when I was going through it, and through personal experience, the feelings that are coming out when the 1111 appears, something different is happening. Something different is happening besides just noticing all of a sudden there's a bunch of Mustangs, or all of a sudden there's a bunch of PT Cruisers. People are reporting when they see this number that there's a feeling of being cared for when these numbers appear. It's said that it's notifying us of a time when a portal is opening between worlds, which is all fine and dandy. How do we know what that really is? We don't know. It's the thinning of the veil. To the people that are more aware of their spiritual abilities, of their psychic abilities, people are noticing that when they see this, it's almost like a trigger. Something's happening. There's a heightened awareness. There's consciousness that comes up. It's almost like this little click goes in your head that says, okay, I need to pay attention. There's also physical anomalies that are occurring. In the research, I saw things about people saying that lights are going on and off. Traffic lights are changing for no reason, which all of these can be explained. It could be, a short in electrical circuit. People are...
Is that happening in your research when you found? Is that happening all around the 1111 timestamp?
That's what people are saying. They are noticing when the 1111 appears that, and it's not happening to everybody, but it is happening to some people where they're noticing like doorbells are ringing. So could it be a message from the spirit guides? Could it be just like I said, could it be that trigger? I mean, it's different than just seeing, every time I look at the clock, okay, it's always on 9:39. I always look at it when it's 9. But what's missing is that feeling. What's happening with this, especially for me, when I see that 1111, it's almost like, it is like kind of like a weird feeling. It's almost like kind of like a little trigger, and certain thoughts come into my head. It's more like it's hard to explain. And I think if you don't understand it, then maybe it hasn't completely happened yet.
Well, maybe, and I may not be, and I've read a lot of articles and websites that say that if you're not recognizing it, then you're denying it or ignoring it. And so maybe that is what I'm doing. I don't know. I'm not going to say yay or nay to this, but for me at this point right now, the coincidence factor is weighing more than it being some sort of phenomenon, some sort of spiritual phenomenon, or as I've read in some instances, it's sort of a DNA activation from the universe or from the gods above, and it's supposed to trigger the DNA in your body to those that have been inflicted with this from day one. But, I'm not going to negate the 11s that have happened to myself and to us. We can go into, Lucy, we just discovered this just recently, that the date for the show that we are doing tonight is June 29, 2012. Now, again, I have not no faith in, but I've not been convinced of this whole 11/11 phenomenon. So when we were discussing to do this topic, which was early last week, we decided to do this on this date. And after the fact, after reading articles and such, and they were sort of breaking down dates constantly. The September 11, 2011 attacks, they say if you add up the numbers of what that signifies, it adds up to 11. And they were just going on and on and on about the number 11. So I said, let's try this for June 29, 2012. And so 29th, the date 29th, 2 plus 9 equals 11. And then if you add up the date, June 29, 2012, 6 plus 2 plus 9 plus 2 plus 1 plus 2 equals 22, which is double 11s. Now, could that be a significance? Could that be a synchronicity? I don't know. Could it be a coincidence? Maybe. I don't believe that there was a reason why. I just simply think it's a coincidence. Now, I know you, Lucy, disagree with me on that.
Yeah, I do. There is a theory that 11/11 or 1/11, it's a call for light workers to become aware. Now, light workers, as everyone knows or may not know, they're a supposed group of individuals who will share the gift of physical and spiritual healing. They're charged with the task of bringing more light into the world. Solara, going back to her, and the things that she wrote I really, really loved what she wrote. And there's one line she has, 11/11 is a pre-coded trigger placed within our cellular memory banks prior to our descent into matter, which, when activated, signifies that our time of completion is near. The 11/11 is hereby being activated. Now, if we go to the Mayan calendar and the 2012 end of the world, there's a lot of us that do believe that 2012 is not the end of the world. But could it be that 2012 is actually the end of one way of thinking and moving into the next? And could this 11/11 be the signal that it's time? It's time to become aware. I mean, it's a theory. No one knows.
I believe what you just said about December 21st, 2012, I believe that, we could be going into sort of a cosmic shift and a spiritual shift during that time. It's not a, cataclysmic end to the world. I think it's a death of one thing and a birth of another. But for me, I just cannot correlate the 11/11 to that. I'm not seeing that. I can see December 21st, 2012, that date as being the shift or the change, or what we're in right now is a gradual shift and change into that, and that is sort of like the peak of the hill, which is December 21st, 2012. But I can't get my mind or my brain wrapped around the idea that 11/11 are these signals for us for this thing. I think, and I believe that there are other things out there that are signals for us. I think, the way that the world is sort of fanning out right now, I think those are the signals. But for me, I just cannot get the 11/11 linked to it. Now, Lucy, I haven't shared this with you.
Okay.
And this is the one clip that I have on our Blog Talk board over here. Okay, so early last week, when we were talking about doing this show, the same day that we decided to do this, now we had talked at night, I think it was on Monday or Tuesday night of last week, which I think was the week of June 22nd? I can't get my dates right. Okay, so if it was the week of June 22nd, we talked on the Monday or Tuesday at night. After we got home from work, we talked on the phone, and we decided to do the 11/11 phenomena. During the day, now this may be news to some people, I'm not sure, but it's on my Facebook profile. Everybody knows, or if you don't, it'll be a revelation here, but I work for an entertainment company. I work for MTV Networks, and I work in New York City, in Times Square, in the tourist hell capital of the world. And during my lunch break, I walked around Times Square, as I normally do, and I smoke. So I go outside a lot and smoke. And there are a lot of things that go on, and there are a lot of celebrities that I see on a daily basis, a lot. I've been there for 16 years, and, I mean, if you name someone, I've seen them or I have dealt with them because I do what I do for the company's events. I do event operations. So I see a lot of celebrities and people constantly every single day. And that one particular day, I can't remember if it was Monday or Tuesday, during the day, but it was right before we had talked later on at that night, I was walking on the side of the building, and I noticed a kid, standing there, and there was a camera crew there, and there was a huge guy, looked like a bodyguard of some sort, or security guy, and they were filming him with a bunch of, teeny bopper girls. And I looked at him, and I had no clue who he was, no clue at all. And I looked on the marquee, and my building is above the Best Buy Theater in New York City. And I looked at the marquee, and it said Austin Mahone performing. The name was Austin Mahone, M-A-H-O-N-E. I think that's how you spell it. So I had no clue. That's not my era. If it is somebody that performs and sings, I have no clue about them because they're out of my age bracket. But then again, I see that all the time at MTV. VH1, I may know. MTV, I don't know. So later on that night, we discussed everything. We discussed the show about doing it on this date. And last weekend, last Friday, I had noticed the same kid again in the building. And so I believe MTV was doing something for him. And apparently right now he is an up-and-coming singer, and he is a YouTube phenomenon. He sort of started his thing on YouTube and posted his videos or his songs on YouTube. And on the weekend, as I'm thinking about 11/11 and I'm sort of writing out and looking at the articles online and going through things, it kind of got me to think, okay, let me try and sort of decipher and see if I can figure out if there are any 11/11s or 11 within my life right at this moment. And one of which I picked up was Austin Mahone. And I said, okay, you know what, I saw him earlier this week. Let me just Google him and see what happens. And I Googled him, put it through, and lo and behold, he's got 2 singles out right now on YouTube, and he is sort of making it big. They're saying he's the new Justin Bieber or whatnot. I'm sure everybody doesn't really care right now what I'm talking about, but he's got 2 songs out. One, I don't remember the other one, but his first big hit is called 11/11 Make-A-Wish. Here's a song.
Make-A-wish, make-a-wish, say. Make-a-wish, make-a-wish, say. Make-a-wish, make-a-wish, I hope you don't come true. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, soon as you.
Okay, I can't listen anymore. But his song is 11/11 Make-A-Wish, Make-A-Wish. Now, I could turn that around and say, okay, we've got all of these things going on here. The date, the 29th of June, me seeing, this guy Austin Mahone on the same day that, you and I sought out to have this without my knowledge of who this Austin Mahone was, and then finding out that, he has this 1111 song. Could it be something? Could it be a sign? I don't know. But to me, it's more coincidence. It's just more coincidence. Now, again, I know, Lucy, you're going to disagree and debate that.
I think that's awesome. I think it's awesome. But then again, it's an individual, personal thing. It is something that I think if it is a sign or if it is a trigger, if it's meant for you, you're going to know. And to me, I think that's absolutely awesome. Why is it that you came across this one person twice already, and when you did finally find out who he was, and I remember hearing the song. I remember hearing the song one day last week in the car, and I was like, oh, cool, 1111. I mean, it's just all these little things that are coming into place. Okay, doing this whole show about 1111. It's okay, it's a coincidence. It's something that we were talking about. But let's say it is, this is a big trigger. Maybe what we're talking about is part of what is supposed to happen to get others to think about it. Part of what this awakening is also sharing with others, and it's also bringing in knowledge to other people so that they can make their own choice. I mean, what we're saying here and what I feel, what you feel, is not supposed to influence something. This awakening is supposed to be a personal thing. It is supposed to be something that each individual person is supposed to go through. So all of these little triggers, whatever they are, sure, are they coincidence? Maybe that's how the universe is working. Maybe it's because we are such creatures that we believe in patterns, that we need to have like a repetitiveness before we can click with something. Maybe this is the universe's way of making us aware. I mean, how is it going to happen? I mean, the angels are not going to come down from heaven and they're not going to, start their band and everything. No. There's got to be something. There's got to be something that starts it. And everything starts with something. This, to me, personally, I just know in my heart that it is a trigger. And it comes down to personal belief. I understand where you're coming from. You're looking at it logically, which, you know what, maybe a year ago I would have been the same way. I would have been like, yeah, it's just a coincidence. Logically, I could look at the clock and it's always, a different time. And it was really funny because when you started talking about Austin Mahone, I looked up at the on-air clock and there was 1 hour and 11 minutes left of the show. So, I mean, do you see what I'm saying? It's all these little things. But to me, personally, no, I don't have the answer. No, I don't have a book that says, this is what's supposed to happen. But all the research all had the same, it gave me the same feeling. And I know that I can't be the only person feeling this, and the more I read about it, the more I see that there's other people feeling it. So, yeah, coincidence? How is it that we're all getting the same feelings about this? How is it that there are some of us that have this same sense of awareness, that there is more to what our reality is what we see and what we can touch. What about the other reality? What about the things that we can't see? Maybe this is the little trigger, the little coincidence that just makes us stop and think, okay, there is another reality. I can't see it yet, but I know it's there. How do I know it's there? I don't know. I have no way to explain the feelings that I have. And I know that others feel the same way. I know that there are other people that for some reason there's something that's coming, there's something that's going to happen, whether it's for the world or whether it's for myself, but I just feel it. And I know others feel it. So I can't say that it's just a coincidence because there's too many other people that are feeling the same type of need to learn more.
Well, to expand on that a little bit, and just to inform everybody out there, in a little while, we're actually going to have Cheryl Patton on the line with us. And if you remember Cheryl Patton, she is a neurologist, and we've actually had her on the show before. And so hopefully maybe she can sort of shed some light on this and sort of get an interpretation from a neurologist on this whole 11/11 phenomenon. But, I just want to go back to what you were saying, Lucy, that, everybody's sort of feeling either that there is this impending doom and a time for change and everything else. I sort of want to blame it all on the hype that December 21st, 2012 has been given. I think that, if you're told you've got one year to live, let's just say the doctor told you you've got 1 year to live, you're going to do and feel a hell of a lot different than you were 2 minutes before he made that statement to you. You're going to feel that you've got limited time, that you've got to change your ways, you've got to think of things larger than what things are appearing to be, think of things as more spiritual, get to know yourself, get to know your family and friends more, maybe even see more of the world, expose yourself to a lot more things. When you're given that time frame, when you're sort of given that death sentence, you tend to feel differently. And I think the whole hype that everybody's been giving, and including the media, because now you've noticed that there are so many movies coming out and songs in regards to the end of the world. And so it's been triggered in our mind that something big is, regardless of whether it's going to be spiritual or not, or the end of the world, something big is going to happen on December 21st, 2012. And so everybody is feeling that right now. And some folks are not interpreting it in the way that other folks are in regards to this quote-unquote spiritual awakening. And I think that's the reason why right now a lot of people are feeling the need for change, the need to make things better, to become a better person, which, I support 125, 150%, because I think we do need to. And I think maybe the whole phenomenon that the ending of the world is going to happen is just that. It's the Mayans are playing a trick on us and forcing us from many thousands of years ago to make this change. Maybe they foreseen something happening, and we're seeing it all around right now. You've got everybody around the world breaking free from the chains that have been binding them for so many years and are becoming freer than they have before. They're becoming freer in the sense that, physically they're being free, but also freer thinkers. And so that enlightenment that they're having, that each individual is having, is sparking all of this interest. And I think that may be then opening up their minds to the possibility that there could be some connection even with this 11/11 phenomenon. I don't know. I am just rambling on. I'm trying to figure out for myself, as I do with everything else, I debate it on both sides, and I try and see the points. And right now, I'm sort of on the fence on it. I'm not convinced either way. I'm not going to say 100% that it's just coincidence, that there is nothing to this whole 11 thing, but I'm not convinced that it is this DNA activation or spiritual awakening or universal intervention. I don't know if it's that or not. I can't tell, and so I'm not convinced either way.
Okay, and you're entitled to your opinion, but I can only speak for myself personally. And to me, in my heart of hearts, in my being, in my own life, I know that December 21st, 2012 is not the end of the world. I know that's not it. It's not going to happen. But I also know that something is happening. Something is happening to me. my life in the whole past year is completely different than what it was a year ago. It is completely different. I have done things that a year ago I would never, ever, ever had the courage or even, I would have never done them.
That's because you have That's because you have me in your life.
Well, that's part of it. I mean,
yeah.
But do you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like it has nothing to do with the end of the world. It has nothing to do with a fear. There's no fear with this. That's what I'm trying to say. This awakening that's coming, it's a good thing, and it's almost like I kind of feel like I'm going to go to Disney World, or I'm going to go to Great America. There's something coming, and it's going to be something good. But how is it that I can get this feeling and then all of a sudden go and pick up a book or look online and, wow, there's a whole group that feels the same way? There's got to be something more spiritual that is making some of us feel it. Now, this other thing that I mentioned before, the call to light workers, you know me. I love mediums. I love psychics. I love all, the people that can talk to angels. And I'm truly convinced that we can talk to angels. And I'm truly convinced that angels work. They can't sit here and they can't have a one-on-one conversation. I'm not that lucky. I can't do that. But I also believe that angels or other beings, the spiritual beings, can talk to us by signs. This happens too much, these numbers, and it's not just 1111. Again, if you look at the research, it comes up with, like 22, 33, 44, and regardless of what the individual numbers look or mean, they're signals. And someone else's signals might not be the 1111. It might be 22. It might be 444. But it's just for some reason there is something about those numbers being together that makes people look up and take notice. And once they take notice of it, for some reason, it's almost like this little door in our heads is opening. It's almost like that Solara said, the portal, the veil is thinning. Now all of a sudden we're becoming more aware of this other reality. And like I said, I truly believe that you may not be convinced because I don't think it's happened for you yet. I think it may happen. Who knows? It may never happen. But I do believe that some of us, and like I say with tarot cards, everybody can do it, but not everybody has developed that. I came across one article that talked about the pineal gland, the endocrinal gland that's located deep in the center of the brain. It's associated with metaphysical and supernatural concepts. It's kind of like they call it the magic organ that's acted like the third eye. Okay, I never believed in like this third eye or anything like that. I've read about it. It sounds real cool. It's mystical and all this stuff. But you know what? The more that I'm going along, it's a real thing. It's a real thing that I've never been aware of, and I'm slowly becoming aware of it. So in my own journey, yeah, something's happening. I'm becoming aware of something. So why is it happening now? And why is it just happening to me, but it's also happening to other people? It's also happening to others. And someone completely on the other side of the world can blog about something, and I'm reading this and I'm like, oh, wow, look at this. They're feeling the same thing I'm feeling. To me, that's more than a coincidence. It's more than just the two of us are sitting here, and I'm here in Chicago, and this person's in New Zealand, and they're feeling the same thing I am. There's something more to it. It's something bigger than all of us. That's just my personal feelings about it.
Well, there are, where did I read it? I think there were 75 million people all over the world that are sort of in belief of the 1111 phenomenon. And, that's a pretty amazing number, but it's small in comparison to how many people are actually on Earth. But, I want to bring up that one little point also, too, that I made much, much earlier in the program about how people are correlating the 11:11 phenomenon to evil, to possession, to demonic signals. You know, for those who are believing that, then what do we say to that? You know, how do we fight that argument and say it's not that, it's spiritual? You know, to them.
Well, okay.
I mean, just to them, they feel that, you know, the number 11 is evil. You know, 666 is not actually the mark of the beast. They're saying that the number 11 is, and they've cited instances within the Bible, within scriptures, that talk about that. And I think they even labeled them as midwayers. I've read somewhere also. So, you know, how do I debate that?
Okay. That goes back to what you believe evil is. And for me, I think evil is going to use anything it can to weasel its way into your life. And if 11:11 is something that all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, wow, 11:11, 11:11, this is cool, this is something that's appearing. Personally, I think that if evil sees a door, it's going to go through it. So here we have this one thing that people are becoming aware, and, you know, it's all nice and it's all happy, and we're going into the age of Aquarius and all is cool. Well, if evil wants to insinuate its way into our lives, why not go and take the easiest route? Take something that is that appears to be nice and appears to be peaceful and it's all good, and just weasel its way in. Sure, I believe that 11:11 can be evil for some people. It boils down to what I said before. It's the feelings that come up when you hear or when you see this trigger. And
well,
no matter.
I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, Lucy, but you sort of negated what you just said. I mean, it is 11:11 phenomenon. You're sort of backing what I was saying. 11:11 phenomenon is, to each individual, something different. It means something different. And so how could something be one thing but then mean something different to each person? If it is a signal of spiritual awakening and DNA activation, then, you know, how could it be evil to one and good to another? You know, we do paranormal investigations all the time, and the one thing that they always say is, don't trust a child spirit. Don't trust a female spirit, because evil will tend to manipulate you by coming forth as being an innocent and playful spirit in order to get closer to you, or in order for you to let them in. And so who's to say that this whole 11:11 phenomenon about a spiritual awakening isn't just that, isn't just a sort of blanket over everybody's eyes, and the devil is behind it, you know, laughing at everybody whenever this spiritual awakening is supposed to happen, you know, him pulling off this veil and, you know, marking you with its claws, you know, I for lack of a better word. But you know what I'm trying to say?
I know what you're trying to say.
Who's to say that this isn't that as well? But my point was, you know, basically you were saying that they were all meant, it means differently to different people. And so that's what I was trying to get at, that it does mean something different to all people. And so how could it be just one?
It does mean something to everybody else. But I think what it is, it's not a law. This is not something that's a law. This is not something that there is a specific theory that can be proven. That 11:11, when you see this, you know, that it definitely is. It boils down to the feelings, and I think it's just a trigger. 11:11 is just the door handle. It's not the door, and that door can either open up to the awakening, where there's a lot of good things, but it also can open up something that's not. So I don't think that 11:11 is exactly like the law, and you know, when you see 11:11, it's the angels coming to talk to you. It's a trigger. It's a notice. It's the little alarm going off. You know, the alarm goes off every day, We don't know what kind of day it's going to be. We don't know if it's going to be the best day of our life or it's going to be absolute hell. You don't know. But you do know when that alarm goes off, it's time to get up and it's time to go out and face it. I think 11:11 is our alarm. I think it's whether it's going to be for good, whether it's going to be for evil. I can't say that. I don't have the answers. I haven't gotten there yet. But I do think that it's the trigger. It's the alarm. Something's coming. Something's going to happen. And I think 11:11, 12:12, 13:13, whatever number you want to get, it's a trigger. It's that little alarm. So I think, yes, it can mean something really good. And I think maybe I'm just connecting with the people that feel the good. But I also do believe that it could be something evil. I think the devil, he couldn't care less. He's going to try to get you no matter what.
All right, let's bring on someone who hopefully maybe can clarify a few things, someone who's an expert on numbers. And our guest tonight is Cheryl Patton, who we've had on the show before, who is an expert numerologist. And she actually has her own show on Blog Talk Radio called One Woman's Wisdom, and that's one, the number one. So let's welcome Cheryl to the show. Hello, Cheryl, are you there?
Yes, Anthony, I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hi, Cheryl.
Very good, because I'm sitting here in the dark. Well, Lucy, once I talked to you and told you the storm was coming through, it certainly did. It knocked all of our power out.
Oh, but you're okay, right?
We're okay. I think we're gearing up for round 2, but that's okay. This is just summertime in the Appalachians, so I thought, well, I'm hanging on to about a half a battery, so I will be on here until AT&T or you knock me off here.
well, Cheryl, we respect your dedication, but if for any reason you have to get off the line, do not hesitate, because your safety comes first. And if people don't know, Cheryl is in the middle of a horrible storm down south, and this has been whipping across Florida and going up the coast, and hopefully it's not a tornado in your area.
No, it wasn't, but we certainly saw the old trees rock and rolling out here.
Oh, gosh. So, Cheryl, our topic tonight is the 11:11 phenomenon, and I'm not sure how much light you can shed on this whole thing, but what is your stance as a numerologist? What is your opinion on this whole 11:11 phenomenon?
A lot of people seem to be seeing 11:11 lately, and when I say lately, I will say within the last couple of years. As a numerologist, my numerology, I'm going to look at it two ways. I am one that's going to pay attention to angel numbers because, if you're going down the freeway, you see the word apple, you're not going to pay much attention to it. But as Lucy was noting, it seems like our guides, our angels, whatever you want to call them, seem to be taking numbers in the last few years and having these repeating numbers come at us over and over and over. It really gets our attention, doesn't it? Or we look at the clock at just a certain time, and looks like a formula to it. It's not just 2:37 or something. There's actually 4:14, 6:16. Why do we keep looking? Whether it's our clock, whether we're down in Walmart, Tesco, whatever country we're in, why do we keep seeing that same number? So the phenomenon for me is not so much a date. I think that we're all going to wake up on the 22nd of December. But it's as if the numbers vibrate at a higher vibration. And therefore, they use those. It really gets our attention. So I'm going to look at it two ways. 11:11, if we go by angel numbers, we're going to break it down for the first three numbers and then the 1 at the end. So it'll come out as 111 and 1. If we look at Doreen Virtue's book, it was published in 2005. If we look at 111 and just the number 1, both of them are telling us, focus on what you want. Change your thoughts. Focus on the positive. Don't focus on what you don't want. Change your thoughts. Change your life. That's what they break down to. As a numerologist, let's take that a little further. We do have 2 11s. It's the visionary. It's the person that is here to motivate, uplift, and encourage others around them. It is, in a way, a teacher, isn't it? And if I look at it, just pretend that I don't see 1111, I just see 4 ones there. If I add up those 4 ones, it's the number 4. And it's about our learning. It's the educator. It's about being a teacher and a student. So in a way, all three explanations come down to, what are you supposed to be learning? What are you supposed to be focusing on? What is coming to you? Now, there's a lot of people out there that see 11 and think, okay, that means that I get the 36-inch screen TV. I'm going to get free money in the mailbox. I'm going to make your list. No. The 11, these are master numbers. It is about honing our wisdom. It's about honing our gifts, our psychic abilities, or maybe we have a divination or a alternative medicine gift. It's about learning. Master numbers are not here for an easy ride. So as far as an event, no, I don't believe it's a one-day event. But how does it actually, affect that person's life? As Lucy was noting, what's the feeling inside? Years ago, and I won't tell you how many, but I was about 25 years old. I was not raised this way. Do I think something's coming down the pike? Yes, I do, but I don't worry about it. I was not, like I said, I wasn't raised this way, but I had this sudden instant just wanting, had nothing to do with numbers, to learn how to survive. I'm not talking about just, paying the bills on time. I'm talking about truly surviving. And I learned everything there was about surviving on one's own if you had to live off the land. I don't know why this was an overpowering feeling. I certainly had enough money to pay my bills. I never had to worry about such things, but I had that want to find out if everything collapsed tomorrow, and 25 years ago, we're talking about in the 80s, why did I have to suddenly learn to do that? My life has taken a lot of different turns, and yes, I now to this day have a cabin down in Tennessee, and it is 18th century. There's just something that's telling me, be ready. I can't prove it will happen. Do I worry about whether it's going to happen? No. I just followed my heart. I learned what I had to do. And then suddenly in the last few years, we see people receiving these numbers over and over and over. So I do. I look them up as angel numbers. I look them up as a numerologist both ways, and then present the findings to the person. Because everyone is going to go through the changes in their universe a little bit differently. Some people will be teachers upcoming. Some people will be the therapist, the counselor. Some people will be the financial advisor. Some people will be the farmers. And I do. I think something's coming down the pike, but I can't put my finger on it either. I don't believe that it's, as Lucy noted, for some, they're going to go into it with a negative attitude, and they will experience the negativity that they bring towards themselves. Some people will roll with the punches, roll with the flow, and they'll take on a different feeling, a different attitude. But we can bring all that back around to focusing on what we want and not focusing on what we don't want.
So, Cheryl, go ahead, Lucy. I'm sorry.
You know what? I wanna touch on something that you just said. The vibrations of the numbers. That is the perfect description, because what I've noticed is that when these numbers appear, there is kind of like a vibration. There is like a feeling, and I can't explain it to anybody, and I can only go by what I'm feeling. But it is a definite feeling. It's a definite something, and it's coming from within. It's not any outside, there's no outside stimulus. There's nothing else. It's just a feeling that's coming from within when I'm seeing these numbers. And for you to say that they have a higher vibration, I totally believe that. I mean, I can feel it. Personally, I can feel it. So do I have the explanation why it's happening? No. But then again...
No, I don't either. Except, as I said, it just seems like the other side always works with a higher vibration, and numbers will vibrate higher than our words. Otherwise, they would be riding across the sky. Lucy, go to the store and get this, you know, or you
Mm-hmm.
need to be learning this or that or the other. And yet we have these numbers coming over and over. And so I take them as what it is and figure them out both ways. I will get out my little angel number book, and I'm going to read that, but I'm also going to add it up as a numerologist. Maybe it's 414. You know, we're going to look at 414 and as angel numbers, and I'm going to grab that out really fast just because that came to my mind. But 414, if I'm going to read that, and this is from the book, says the angels assist you with aligning your thoughts with your highest truth. Give any worries, cares, or fears to the angels in exchange for peaceful and positive thoughts. Now that would be an angel explanation. But if I add that across, it's the number 9. And what do we know about the number 9? It's the therapist. It's the counselor. Giving your worries. And when we go to a counselor, isn't that what we do? We share our worries. We share our concerns. So I'm going to present that to a person. How does that go with what's going on in your life? And I'm going to leave it with them to figure out, are you being called to be a counselor? Are you being called to be a therapist? Or are they telling you that you need to take your own concerns and your own worries about perhaps the future or about the present future, or the present, I should say, and give it to them? But definitely it seems like they are using numbers at this particular time a little more heavily. You know, when I say that, also what hits me is, how do we know it's more heavily? How do we know this wasn't going on in the 1950s? We don't. People weren't sharing this then. People were more conservative, whole different situation. And it's hard to go back, and a lot of our parents are gone now, and our grandparents that we learned these divination arts from, and we can't ask them, were you seeing that then? All we can go by is what's going on today. But it would be fascinating. Did they see this in the past? We have no documentation. We don't have a documentation of whether this phenomenon was going on 100 years ago, 200 years ago. But it is going on today.
Cheryl, you've heard, I'm sure you've heard us talking tonight, and I'm sort of on the other side of the fence of where Lucy is. And, you know, not meaning that I don't believe in the meaning of numbers, because I do. I do believe that I do believe in numerology. I do believe in something higher within the numbers and what it represents. I guess the hard thing that I'm fighting with is correlating the whole I guess notation that this whole 1111 phenomenon is supposed to be. You know, you were just talking now, you know, did it happen in the 50s, and why is it happening more and more now? I think it may be happening more, or people may be noticing it more now because we have things more readily available. You know, digital clocks were invented for, you know, I guess it was like maybe 30 years ago. And, you know, with the advent of computers and iPods and all these things that we have readily available to us at hand, there's just more instances where we're able to see the time, or we're able to see numbers more on our cell phones or on anything that we have electronic on us. And so I think that may be the reason why we may be seeing it more, and it's not just the idea that we're coming into an age of enlightenment or anything of that nature. That's just sort of my feeling and my opinion on it. I could be wrong, but that's sort of my, my reality and my brain trying to figure it out, and I'm only getting this far into it. I want to give you an instance, and this happened to me. This happened to me last year in 2011, which marked the 10-year of the 9/11 attacks. Now, I live in New York. On 9/11 in 2001, I was there in the city. I was downtown when the first plane attacked. And so 9/11 has significant meaning for me, and it was a traumatic experience of my life. And when the 10-year anniversary happened last year, it struck something within me. And it was leading up, and it started actually from January and February of 2011. And it led all the way up until September when they had the 10th anniversary celebration, or I'm sorry, the memorial for it. And from January or February leading up to September, I constantly saw the time 9/11, whether it be in the morning or night, and it was constant. And I think it was because of this tragic event that happened, my personal experience of being there, and the coming of the 10-year anniversary, it triggered my brain to see 9/11 in a lot of things. And subconsciously, I was doing it a lot, and I was noticing those numbers a lot more on paper when I was at work, or the actual clock, my time, the time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can explain that. If it was my spiritual awakening, it could be. It could be somewhat of that nature, but I think it's because the number 9/11 and the event 9/11, it triggered my brain to constantly see that pattern because it was always on my mind. Am I wrong for thinking that way, or is it?
No.
Or could it be something more?
No, absolutely not. I had an event in my life that happened at 12:15. It happened 48 years ago. I will instinctively, on October 3rd, look at the clock at 12:15. And because that time is forever fried in my mind, because it was also surrounded trauma. So those are things, I'm going to go back to what Lucy said. How does it make you feel? If you're looking at that and realizing if that's what you're feeling within inside, that's probably the message. What is the feeling? We control our lives. We create our lives so much on feeling. And if you look at 9/11 and you kept seeing those numbers, whether it was on work that you're working at, on paper, or a check just happens to be, and it's around that time, is that the first thing you think of is the event? Chances are that's something that's just there because you experienced that trauma. But for the people who are looking at the clock and let's say see 414 or 11 and their first feeling, and I'm not thought, their first feeling within there is I need to learn this, or it's a feeling of love, it's a feeling of connecting with the divine, it's a feeling of spirituality. That's one thing you have to follow. But definitely, when I look instinctively at the clock at 12:15 that day, I'm not thinking of the divine. I'm not thinking anything to do with it's trauma that is forever there. So I will say, go back to what do you feel? What's the first thought you think of when this happens? And the interesting part about 9/11 when it occurred, it was an 11-day, 11 attitude, 5 life path number. It was an 11-11 situation. What did we learn? What was it that we were supposed to hone? What was it about that day? It was a changing day. That's a 5 life path. Major change. And it was a major change. But it doesn't mean that when we see it, what's the feeling inside? Because when we see those numbers, it's not just seeing the numbers. What do you feel? What's that feeling within your chest? What's that first feeling or instance? Now, if you look at I'm going to say, if you're going down the freeway and all of a sudden you see 414 and it doesn't mean a thing to you and it goes right off, probably isn't the message for you. But I think the people we're talking about are the ones that do feel that change within them. They do feel that love or attention or a calling. Sometimes you see the people who see the 333s, and I will say, what is it about what are you supposed to be communicating? What is it that you're supposed to be saying? What are you supposed to be creating? And sure enough, that person says, oh, every time I see that, I think of when I was supposed to be teaching, and it's been something in my mind says I should be communicating. That's the people that we focus in on. If the numbers don't seem to affect you in any way, that's not, it's not that you're missing something. It's just not the message for you. But I think that Lucy was saying, it's the people that it just keeps coming up, and they know because they know, but maybe they just don't have their thumb on it yet.
Mhm.
They can't
I'm sitting here and I'm shaking my head.
They can't quite put the answer because they haven't really looked it up yet. But once they put together both sides, put the angel numbers and the numerology together, let's find out, is this where you're supposed to be going? And I will say 9.99 times out of 10 that person says, yes, I have been thinking that I should be doing. And the interesting part is that phrase should be usually is always in the sentence. So those are the people, they're the people that are getting the messages for that. But definitely, if we're seeing 9/11 and your first thought was the event 9/11, yes, I also believe that things can be, put into our minds through trauma, and we are just going to instinctively see that time or see those numbers when it surrounds the time of the event. Or
and Lucy, let me just add one more thing. Just what you were just saying now, it sort of instinctively instills something in our minds. And as I was saying about 9/11, last year I believe I think there were a lot of significant 11s, and then obviously the 11/11/11 date itself. And so, could it be that because there have been so many 11s, and then the breakdown of December 21st, 2012 being that it is an 11, it sort of instinctively be put into our minds as though this 11/11 phenomenon means more than just being coincidence?
I'm going to say, I've got to say, for some people, it can be sensationalism. What is it going to bring into your life? If that's what they're seeing. For those people that seriously believe in those numbers coming to them, they're not really worrying about what other people are looking at it. It's like, what is it for me? I hate to use the term, what's in it for me, but in a way, it is. What is it about their universe that needs to change? I will say that most people who are affected by the, as you said, 11/11 phenomenon, there's something they're seeking. There's something they're looking for. There's something that they are going towards a goal. Some people that really aren't affected by it, they're the folks that are filling out the list that says the next time that comes around, I want the 36-inch screen TV. I want that, because they're in the sensationalism. But those people who are truly looking for their, to expand their spirituality, and they are using it as a means of divination for their life, they seem to be more open to the various numbers. It isn't just about 11/11. It's all the other numbers as well. And they will have their own set. It's not just 11/11. They will have their own set of numbers that keep coming to them and usually have something to do with something else. And it's two different sets. But yes, it can be a sensationalism thing. And I think that they're going to be more disappointed that it's not going to pan out to where they think it's going.
Cheryl, it is kind of very, and I don't want to put it, but it is almost a selfish thing. It is an individual thing like that. The sensationalism, seeing the 9/11 all around. I'm sure around that time, 9/11 was everywhere. I was talking about it. I was preparing for the anniversary. So, of course, that is like a repetitive thing that was in your head. So when you saw 9/11, of course, it's this. But I think what we're talking about with this 11/11 thing, it's different. It's not something that, okay, every time 11/11 comes up, I have to think about this. I have to think about all the things I want. It's not like that. It's almost like it's a very internal, it's almost like when you see it, it's like something opens up inside, and then all of a sudden this beautiful flower comes up, or this beautiful cloud comes, and it's so hard to explain. It's like It is a vibration. It is like a knowledge.
It is. It's like something trying to get your attention. And for a lot of people, it doesn't stay with just that. It's like that might be the first number that comes up for them repeatedly, but then it goes off in a different direction. As I said, some people will go into the communication end of it. Some people will go into the family or into security, stability. Some people will go into counseling. But it'll be a different number eventually for everyone. But for a lot of folks, they report that was the very first number that got their attention. Then it expanded to other things. It went off into something else.
Mhm.
And then those were the numbers they saw over and over. But again, even if that is the number that they see, I always remind them, what does it mean? Which is the focusing. Focus on what you want, not on what you don't want. And if we add them all up, it's the number 4. What are you supposed to be learning? What at this point of time are you supposed to be learning? Or are you supposed to be teaching? It can be two different ways.
And the thing that I find interesting about it, when you say, like, you know, what are you supposed to be learning? What do you want? It's not a material thing. It's not, you know, it's not the big screen TV. It has nothing to do with that.
Right.
It has nothing to do with that I want to become rich and I want to become famous. It's something completely different. It's a very personal, it's like I need to develop this sense of something. I need to develop this sense of learning. I need to develop this sense of being aware. It's not a physical, I want $1 million and I want a car and I want a big house. It's not anything like that. It has nothing to do with material things.
Yeah, and for some people, for different light workers, it's time to start your path. It's time to move forward. It's time to get busy. And so absolutely, I really do believe that it seems like more and more numbers are coming up for people in different types of combinations, and that's what they need to pay attention to. Let's dissect those numbers and see what they add up to and what their personal message in the whole thing is.
Still not convinced, Anthony?
No, it's not that I'm not. It's not that I'm not convinced. It's just like I said before, I believe in the higher meaning of numbers and what they mean to each of us and what they represent and what they can tell us. But I'm not sure. I'm convinced of the fact that what the quote unquote 1111 phenomenon and what people are saying about it is what it is. I sort of agree with the both of you that, it is to each of us individually as we each feel it to be. And so if we feel it to be one thing that may be different than another, I believe that. I believe that, this 1111 phenomenon to me doesn't mean the same thing as what Lucy feels. And so I get that. I totally understand it. But what I'm hearing from a lot of folks that they're sort of portraying this 1111 phenomenon to be is this one thing, is this, and like I mentioned earlier, people are saying it's a DNA activation, it's a certain spiritual awakening, it's this. It could be all of that. It could be one of those things. Some people are even saying it's negative. It's sort of a demonic thing. And so to each person, they're thinking these things, and I believe to them that's what it is to them. But I don't believe that to the people that are saying to us, this 1111 phenomenon means X, Y, Z, I don't believe that. That is what I don't believe.
Oh, yeah, I agree that it's going to be different for each person. Everybody's on a different path. Everybody is going to move forward at a different pace. That's our free will. But definitely, I think it is suddenly something our guides and angels can get a hold of our attention very quickly. Sometimes it means get back on your path. Sometimes it means it's time to start. And so I do. I grab what is that person feeling, and I break it down between the two different the looks at it. As I said, the angel numbers and then numerology. Let's put them together. Let's weave it together and find out, is that where that person is supposed to be? And that's usually, I can find out from the person who brings that to me, does this resonate with you? Are you supposed to be doing this? And I'll give them a list of questions based on the two ideas, the angel numbers and just plain numerology, depending on the numbers they're seeing. And generally they'll come back and say, oh, gosh. They'll kind of smile and say, yes, it's been knocking in my head that I'm supposed to be doing this. And to me, it's just the other side's way of waking us up and saying, it's time. It's time for you to start this, or it's time for this person to start that. But it's not going to be the same path for each person. And I don't believe that it's the same date. It's not just one date, and everything changes. Absolutely not.
So, Cheryl, again, like I said before, I don't believe it's the 11/11. I don't believe that it's the 12/12 or whatever. I think that there's no rule. There is no rule to it. It is just a trigger. It is just the one thing that leads you to whatever you're really supposed to be doing.
To whatever you're supposed to be. But it does get your attention, doesn't it? It just all of a sudden, all those ones in a row. And for some people, it's all the twos in the rows or threes in the rows. It gets your attention. It's time to start focusing. It's time to start looking. Absolutely.
It's time to start looking.
Anthony, just to go on your, you said some people feel it's evil. So maybe those people have never really been aware of evil and what it is. Maybe it's time for them to become aware of evil and maybe to really figure out, hey, evil is a real thing. Maybe it's a trigger for them. I mean, it does, the trigger, I don't think it really means, okay, this trigger's happening, so now it's all good. Again, like Cheryl said, it's different for every person. So the people that are feeling that 11/11 is evil, maybe that's the reality that they need to look at, that there is evil, or that there needs to be an awareness of that evil. I think it boils down to just the awareness, regardless of what the end result, what you become aware of, it's the act of becoming aware.
I agree. I agree. Well, it is for each their own and what they make of it and what they bring forth with it. And so whether it's evil or not, it's to each individual, just as you and Cheryl were just saying. So, thank you so much, Cheryl, for coming on. I think your input was so great and so needed for this little debate that Lucy and I were having. I think you brought some really great insight to it. And I just want to plug again, you are on Blog Talk Radio, and your show is called One Woman's Wisdom, and that's one, the numeral one. Is there anywhere else that folks can get in contact with you?
I've got my website, which is www.cheryl, and then a little hyphen mark, patton.blogspot.com, and I'm always usually over there giving the vibrations of the day. And they can read them there or over on Facebook on One Woman's Wisdom.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Cheryl, for coming on. We really do appreciate it, especially in the weather predicament that you are in right now. I hope everything's okay.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Cheryl.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we're going to be talking to you. We're going to be talking to you soon again, okay?
Okay. Good night.
All right. Thanks,
Good
Cheryl.
night, dear. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Lucy, just a little sidebar here. Now it's actually stopped. Were you looking at the on-air stream left time that's on the board?
Yes.
Did you see it flipping back and forth?
Yes.
It was flipping. The time kept flipping back. It was counting down. We on the Blog Talk Radio board that we work off of to provide the show to you. It's the switchboard. It basically has the callers that call in, the audio clips. We've got the chat room, and then it gives us on air in big red letters basically, and it tells us how much time is left in the show. And during the call with Cheryl, towards the end, maybe the last 10 or 15 minutes or so, it kept flipping. It kept saying 25 minutes and 44 seconds, 25 minutes and 43 seconds, and then it would flip to 17 minutes and 54 seconds and 17 minutes and 53 seconds. Then it would flip back to 25 minutes, and it just kept going back and back, and I think it's actually doing it still. That's just odd and very weird. Is that a coincidence? Is that an 1111 phenomenon? I don't know.
It's a trigger. It's a sign.
It's a trigger. It's a sign that we've got 13 or 15 minutes left. It's not sure yet what it is. It's actually it's still doing it now. It's going from 15 minutes, and then it's going down to, watch, it'll go down to 13 minutes, and then it'll go back up to 15 minutes. It's very odd.
No, I think it's a sign. I think it's time for you to become aware.
Well, just to reiterate again what I was trying to say, and I'm not trying to make my point, and I don't want people to, I'm not forcing people to believe my point. I'm just, again, like I've always said before, we put out the theories and let you guys, the listeners, make up your own mind. And so tonight, it's, for instance, Lucy and I have sort of opposing opinions on this topic. But I just wanted to share very quickly, Lucy, that I found online the 10 most remarkable coincidences in history. And there are, and I'm sure everybody has had coincidences. You're at an airport and you see somebody that you haven't seen in a long time. You call it a coincidence, or do you call it something more? Is it faith intervention? Is it, were you meant to see that person in the airport? Or is it just a coincidence? And so I was just reading through some of these stories, and they were pretty strange and pretty odd. And, excuse me, I may read just one or two of them. Here's one that I found that was pretty eerie. Everybody knows that Abraham Lincoln was killed by John Wilkes Booth. And not everybody knows that Abraham Lincoln had a brother. And so this story goes like this. Not John Wilkes and Abraham, Edwin and Robert. Turns out that a few months before John Wilkes Booth obtained notoriety for murdering the president at Ford's Theater, the president's son, Robert Todd Lincoln, was waiting on a narrow, crowded platform for a train in Jersey City, New Jersey, when he lost his footing and fell beneath the slowly moving carriage of a departing train. Pulled to safety before any harm befell him, he turned to thank his rescuer and was surprised to see that it was the well-known actor Edwin Booth, the brother of John Wilkes. In what could only be considered one of the most remarkable coincidences in history, the son of a president was rescued by the brother of the president's assassin. Is that not a cool, odd, weird story?
That is weird. That is very weird.
All right, here's another one, and this has actually to do with numbers. In a somewhat grisly coincidence, it seems that two women, Barbara Forrest and Mary Ashford, were both victims of a similar crime committed in the tiny village of Erdington, some 5 miles outside of Birmingham in England. Both 20-year-olds, who happened to share the same birthday, had been raped and strangled. Their bodies were found 300 yards apart, and both had been found on the same day, May 27th. But it was 157 years apart. One was murdered in 1817, and the other was murdered in 1974. Even more remarkable, both had just visited a friend that evening, both had changed into a new dress that night, and both had gone to a dance where they presumably met their killer. Still not remarkable enough for you? How about the fact that the man accused in both their crimes was named Thornton, and that both Thorntons were eventually acquitted for the crime? Was it reincarnation? Coincidence? Who knows? So I wanted to add that in there as just sort of beef for my idea that this whole thing could be coincidence. Now, whether you believe it or not is up to you. I'm not forcing anybody to believe it. I'm just putting my opinions out there and the research and stories and theories that I have come across and what I believe this whole 11/11 phenomenon could be.
And I'll give you that, but you still haven't convinced me that it's just coincidence. I mean,
Okay.
I can only go by my feelings, and as long as it keeps happening, I'm going to keep telling you. And I'm just saying, I know that there's something good coming, and I know that too many people are feeling the same thing, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I really don't. I think the angels are reaching out to us, and I guess another thing, it boils down to, do you believe in angels? I mean, some people don't, and that's the way, and that's what makes this whole wonderful universe so amazing, because we have so many different opinions, and we have so many different ideas. So this, to me, is just, it's a trigger. It's not a set rule, and it doesn't mean anything. But then again, it really does. And I know that's like a weird statement, and it's usually like how the thoughts are in my head that are always, all over the place. But I truly believe, and I think it boils down to what's in your heart, and I do believe.
Well, before we get into, before we go on to naming the fan of the week, like we normally do every Friday, excuse me, I just wanted to add this little bit of information. It's actually a little bit of news that I found today. Riding the elevator at work, it actually came up on the little screen that's in the elevator, and I went online and I found the article on it. And it's talking about time. It's in relation to this whole thing, but not so much about the 11/11 phenomenon. But I don't know if anybody knows this, but tomorrow night, June 30th, we're actually going to be getting one more second of time. The idea, or the actual science of time, eludes me completely, so I can't even explain that whole thing. But let me just read you a little bit of this. Time never stops for anybody. The old adage will be put to the test as horologists, whatever that means, around the world tomorrow will hold back time, with the last minute being of 61 seconds to compensate for Earth's movement. The last minute of June 30th, 2012 is destined to be 61 seconds long, for timekeepers are to add a leap second to compensate for the wibbly-wobbly movements of our world. The ever-so-briefing halting of the second hand will compensate for a creeping divergence from solar time, meaning the period required for Earth to complete a day, the Daily Telegraph reported. The planet takes just over 86,400 seconds for a 360-degree revolution, but it wobbles on its axis and is affected by the gravitational pull of the sun and the moon and the ocean tides, all of which break the rotation by a tiny sliver of a second. As a result, Earth gets out of step with International Atomic Time, which uses the pulsation of atoms to measure time to an accuracy of several billionths of a second. So to avoid this, they are adding now one more second onto the end of June 30th, 2012. So 12:59 and 61 seconds will be the end of June 30th tomorrow night. So I just wanted to throw that in there because we are talking about time and numbers, and I figured I'd just add that in there as a little bit of news to everybody.
Oh, the first thought that popped into my head, it's like one more second to finish that last call drink.
One more second to sleep. Okay, so let's go on to the fan of the week. And this week, the Paranormal Review Radio fan of the week is Claudia Sousa. She is from Georgia. And Claudia is always on our Facebook page, Paranormal Review Radio, and she's always posting comments and liking, and so we just wanted to give back to her. She's been around for a very long time. So congratulations, Claudia, and you are this week's Paranormal Review Fan of the Week.
Congratulations, Claudia. Okay, so you got anything else, or shall we...
I don't. I can't wait for you to describe what we are actually going to be talking about tomorrow, next week. So I want you to get to the end of the show and reveal what we are going to be discussing next week.
Okay. Well, you know what? Hey, wait a minute. Let's just take a look. What time is it now? You know, it's time to put another great show to bed. So hopefully this show has made you think. You know, the next time you check the time, are you getting a message from the universe? Something to think about. We do want to thank Cheryl Patton for stopping by, especially in the middle of a massive storm, and sharing her wealth of knowledge with us. You know, she's simply amazing. And again, please make sure you check out her show, One Woman's Wisdom, on Blog Talk Radio. Anthony, thank you again for everything you do. Doing the show with you is so much fun, and I really enjoyed debating you. Thank you to all of our fans, our friends, and family for listening and for all of your support. You know, if you guys like the show, pass the word. Okay, I have another question. You know, we're all friends here, right? You know, how many times have you come across something in the paranormal world that just aggravates the crap out of you? How many times have you screamed at the TV screen or at your computer because you just cannot believe what you've seen or what you've just heard? Have you come across someone who just doesn't get what it means to be a paranormal investigator? Well, we have, and we're willing to bet that you have too. So next week, we're going to set off our own little fireworks display. We are devoting the show to paranormal rants, reviews, and revelations. The phone lines are going to be open during the whole show. So we want you to call us, share your rants, your raves, and get it off your chest. Yes, we have a list of things that we find absolutely silly, crazy, and downright aggravating in the paranormal world. The gloves are going to be off. We invite you to join us and let everyone know what makes you crazy. It is going to be a night of explosive radio. So please make sure you call in. So, on that note, dear friends, have a very safe 4th of July and a paranormal week. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Paranormal Review Radio.